Welcome back. Welcome to the second half of the year, right, Steve?
Pretty much, isn't it? I mean, 4th of July usually signals the mid-year. So, yeah.
Now's the time to start ramping up that second half business plan. I know I have a couple meetings set up with agents.
I've always felt like the second year, too, is more compressed because it seems more and more the holiday season starts at Halloween. So you really don't have a full 6 months, or do you,
You know, it's funny, when I talk to agents, a lot of them will say that December is the slowest month, and it's not. Statistically, it certainly isn't.
No.
And the slowest month is actually, by transaction, February. And I ask them if they know why. Why is February the slowest month normally? Because everybody took December off.
Well, there you go. There's no pipeline. That's exactly right.
Right. There's no pipeline closing.
Yeah.
So today we thought we would do something a little bit interesting. We want to talk a bit about objection handling structurally, not here's 3 scripts you can use right now, although if you like one, we'll have to give you one. But what's the structure of objection handling? And then open this up, make it a Q&A and ask us anything. It could be about objections. It could be about something going on in the market, but more of an interactive dialogue, right? With everyone on the call.
Right. Yeah, and I think
that's
it's
kind
important. No, I like that. And because I don't know, I've always been hypersensitive to, I believe in scripts. Scripts are important, but how they're delivered sometimes, agents, if they could internalize the script so they can understand what every script is intending to convey or communicate, they would find that, I think I just denied entrance to someone by accident. I'm sorry. Oh, shoot. Anyhow, but if they would just try to internalize the message, then the scripts are always there, right? I mean, like if you understand your value proposition, you'll lean into a bucket and click admit.
I got it.
All right, good. And you can start to build a repetitive or something that you would want to duplicate as your intro into handling a commission objection, let's say. Like you could always start by saying, I understand that commissions are important to you, and obviously it would be intellectually lazy for me to presume I understand exactly why you're asking me why you would like to reduce my fee. But I'd like to ask you, what's important to you about that as it relates to your decision in hiring an agent? That dialogue is scripted, but it feels like I'm having a conversation. And I think when I watch a lot of scripts or dialogue or objection handling, they feel scripted, and so they don't feel authentic. And I think if it feels that way to me, as someone who's pretty critical of dialogues and scripts, then I think that it's probably not that difficult for a seller to feel like that's a canned script and something that's not coming from inside of you, something you really believe. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that, like how you have a conversation while staying between guardrails.
Right, that's exactly it. Because scripts are great. We have lots of them. And the saying is what you were saying before. I tell agents, you memorize, you internalize, then you customize. Memorize, internalize, customize. And it doesn't matter in the beginning that a script doesn't sound like you. No script sounds like anybody. That's not the point. The point is to memorize it and internalize it until you can use it in a customized way, which is what you're getting at, Steve. It's coming out naturally, and it fits the situation. To me, there's a structure to that, and so that's what I want to share with everybody. And if you're writing this down, it's just 4 words: repeat, affirm, question, dream. Repeat, affirm, question, dream. And the first 3 parts are real easy, and it's what you're saying, Steve. The first part is repeat. This is just basic NLP that we're teaching all the time. You create rapport by repeating the last 3 main important words they said. And then you affirm. You say a positive. So even if they said, Sean, I think you're a real idiot. Fantastic. It doesn't matter. Repeat the last few words and give them a positive affirmation. It has a huge, huge impact on the rapport you're building. But then you go to what you're saying. This is where I agree with you completely, Steve. Before we handle the objection, we got to make sure we understand it. You'll be surprised what people think they're asking or what we think they're asking and how it's different. It can be that way with price. The easy example that I like to give is when they say, so tell me how much experience you have. And if you're a newer agent or you're new to the area, oh no, okay, I learned this script. I'm going to use the team's experience to show. And you do the whole thing and you do it brilliantly. And the person says, that's too bad. I was looking for someone new who I would be their only client. They would give me all their attention. And you just lost the listing because you didn't understand what the question was.
Yeah,
So you have to.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times it's the one step that I have is whatever the objection is, I try to affirm it. To your point, I just try to agree. Look, I can appreciate if saving you X amount of dollars or working with an agent of X amount of experience, that the perception might be that that could be a definite benefit to you. I appreciate looking at it from your point of view, but how do you measure experience? Would you measure that, Mr. and Ms. Seller, in terms of years in the business, or would you measure that by volume? Would you measure that by the number of transactions? Because there are a lot of people, right, who have been licensed for many years. They have a license to do something they're not doing a lot of. And then you have people that have been executing at a high level, maybe for a shorter period of time, but I would argue probably have more on the ground real-time experience what's going on in the market right now. So for you, why is that important? Again, help me understand what the experience, what are you looking to get from an experience? And so that's how, I'm always angling whenever I was newer or any objection. It's always coming from a place of curiosity and not judgment. The mistake we make, and you hit on it, is when we rush to judgment. We hear that objection and we know that 90% of the time, someone's questioning commission, let's say, as an example, that they're having an issue with the cost. But that's not always the case. And it is far better, even if that is the situation, for you to draw that out of them while gives you time to listen for something that you can counter argument or affirm and have a counter response to. So I always afforded myself the opportunity, even though I knew probably from my own intuition over time what my reflex response would be. I still conditioned myself to buy that time to be curious, because if I can question you, Sean, about what your intentions are, I'm doing two things. I'm buying time and I'm showing care and concern for your feelings, which helps you overcome any objection.
And you can be very simple with it. When someone brings up an objection, that sounds really important to you. Tell me more about that. It could be that simple. I want to understand more, but like what Steve's saying is what I really want to understand is what you think you're saying. And here's the important part. And I should have started with this, Steve. When we're discussing objection handling, it's very important that you understand that it's not real. There is no real objection. If something's real, it's a condition. My wife's in the Navy. She's on a submarine. She has to sign this piece of paperwork and can't. That's not an objection. That's a condition. We're going to have to figure out a way to solve it. You solve conditions. You overcome objections. Every single objection is really the person saying, this is a big, hard decision and I don't want to make it. Because no one likes making big, hard decisions, even if they need to. So objections are almost always a way to cross you off the list, to get this thing off your list, which feels good. We all make lists. Doesn't it feel good when you cross them off? Even if you get to the end and you haven't accomplished your goal. Yeah, I crossed everything off my list. So we have to understand going in, an objection is not a real thing. And that's why it's important to explore it and understand what they think they're asking so that we can handle it. We can overcome it.
A lot of times an objection is something that they're uncomfortable with that you've either covered or you failed to cover. So it's important to drill. Say, is there something, as you're wrapping up, or they have an objection? Look, we want to, this always shows up where, we want to think about this. We're not prepared to sign anything. We have a couple other agents we want to talk to. You and I have had this discussion, Sean, early on. Like it's a script I have when I go into every listing appointment. If I weren't managing today and I were to go back into sales tomorrow, every single listing appointment I would go on would start out with this basic entry, which is, Mr. Purcell, at the end of today's meeting, one of three things is going to happen. The first thing that may happen, I should say, is you may choose to list your home with me, and that would be great. The second thing that might happen is you may choose not to list your home with me, and I'm Just want to assure you I'm prepared to accept that decision. I don't think anybody should make a decision that they're not 100% sure or comfortable with. The third thing that might happen is I may choose not to take your listing. Would that be a fair assessment? Now, I'm not going to go any further for this show, but there's so much, I learned the hard way from a very experienced agent why that intro dialogue is so important. Because if you start your listing presentation with something like that, you are setting the stage where a decision is to be made. They may have it in their mind they're going to interview 2 or 3 people. But with that dialogue, you should be able to figure out whether you're the leader in the clubhouse or you can secure the listing right there, subject to you doing 2 or 3 things. And if they tell you they want to sleep on it, after you started your listing presentation with that dialogue, clearly it allows you to go back and say, there must be something I didn't cover or that you're not comfortable with, based on our agreement that at the beginning of our meeting, we should be able to reach a decision on whether I'm a good fit for you or not. So what would that thing be? Could you share that with me? Anyway, so it's just an idea here for you to start to set yourself up for more success, because as a sales manager, if I had a nickel for every time I had a newer type agent go out on a listing presentation and I asked them how it went, and they come, oh, it's great, it went fabulous, did you get the listing? No, they're going to interview 2 or 3 other people, and they still felt pretty comfortable. But if I had a nickel for every time they lost the listing because they didn't close it because there was probably a concern or something they failed to cover that ultimately cost them the listing. And all of us on this call, every single one of us, I don't care if it's Jeffrey as a manager, Melanie as a manager, we've all heard this. And there's experienced agents like Lauren Sanders, I see him on it, who has gone out on one of these presentations and swore to God he bagged that listing. He just needed to give them time, only to find a Century 21 sign go up a week later. Every agent has had that experience. And I think it's because of this right here. This is not setting the stage to have.
And then handling the objections.
Yeah.
And I don't want to bleed over into closes, which is a problem a lot of the time. But today we're talking about objection handling, and I do want to open it up. I know Melanie wrote in the notes something really important. Scripts feel scripted when you practice them on your client.
Yeah.
That's not the place to practice. We practice with each other, right? We role play. You should be driving your significant other nuts with your coming home every night and practicing a script. So they're like, please stop doing this. But do you guys have questions about, it could be about anything, but especially if you have objections or a method that you use that you want to share. We want to make today more interactive. You can unmic yourself. You can type it into the notes.
Or do you have an objection that you get that you're not sure how to address?
Yeah, there's a good place for that. No? Okay. When I think about the structure that we're talking about, because I'm trying, Steve, to stay away from a specific objection. What I'm hoping everybody walks away with today is kind of an idea of how to handle objections on the whole. And the handler, the script itself, you have to learn. And we've got tons of those. You can call any one of us. We've got books of those. Really, it's the transition that's important. It's that asking questions to make sure you understand what it is they think they're saying. It's the realization, Steve, that you just put very clearly, that their objection means you haven't created enough trust yet for them to make this decision that they don't want to make. There's another structural part that you can use with this that's fun. I think it's fun. I'm kind of a nerd with this stuff. This is a transition part between the objection and the objection handler. There's a few steps you can do. And it's the same. It's still the repeat and affirm. We always repeat and affirm. But then isolate. It's ILI. Repeat, affirm, and then ILI. Isolate, love me, re-isolate. And what it does is it helps. Sometimes people are objection shopping because, again, they don't want to make the decision. And if you just handle each objection that comes up, they'll keep bringing them up. And we'll just see who has better scripts in the end. That's not what we want to do. So when you repeat and affirm, and then you isolate. So the commission seems high to you. That's what I understand. If it wasn't for that, I've begun to isolate it, right? And then before we let them talk about it, I go right into love me. before we deal with that, you really liked the marketing campaign, didn't you? Tie down. And the pieces that we put together, you thought were better than anything you have ever seen, right? Tie down. We do 2 or 3 tie downs of the other parts of your presentation. I'm making you say how much you love me. Then we re-isolate. So it sounds like if we could just handle this commission issue, we'd be able to get this started today. And they're going to say, right, yes. You've isolated it down to now one objection. You've put them kind of in a corner where they can't try to shop new objections later. Then you transition into the objection handling script. It's a very powerful closing transition, if that makes sense.
It does. I've always tried to train myself to just whatever, just from a mindset that whenever I enter into a buyer consultation or a listing presentation, I've always tried to lower the pressure in the room by just, emotional intelligence is such a valuable tool in handling objections. And when we get myopic and we're just concerned about getting what we need, it shows that we're stiff. We're reaching for scripts, or we're reaching for something that will help give us our own lifeline through this conversation to help us get across the shore. Where I try to enter the conversation by being so casual that I say, I'm here to understand exactly what it is you're needing. So I just want to have a conversation. I'm not here to present anything other than those things that you feel you need to have a better understanding of to help you make an intelligent, informed decision about the person you're going to hire for this job. So I just want to have a conversation. And so I set, even though I'm going to be very scripted in how I approach the conversation, right? I know what 14 steps I want to follow. I want the feeling to be that this is just a conversation that I want to have with you, and understanding exactly what it is you're needing in the sale of your home. And if we come across the need or an expectation that you have, Miss Buyer, Seller, then it's certainly okay for both of us to make a decision that we can go forwards, independent of one another, and allow you to find that right fit. That's a really okay thing. Now, you can have a conversation like that when you have your inventory built up and you've been prospecting, you got enough buyers. I mean, you can walk away from a bad business relationship. The reason most people can't use a script like that is they're too busy trying to get their inventory built up, and they don't want to walk away, or won't walk away from a bad business opportunity or a bad business decision. So it's really important that you come from a place of strength, because when you have that confidence, and to your point earlier, when you're trying to help people make that intelligent, informed decision, and you're coming from a place of strength, everything you say is more powerful. When you know you can walk away at any moment and not feel, yeah, it is. And I learned that not in the early stages of my career by understanding that conceptually or even mentally. I saw that being role modeled by the industry's very best. And so I realized that really quickly that I had to have inventory to make good business decisions for myself and for other people. That led me to one last point I want to make is that in my conversations, it was always about safeguarding the needs of my client. I wanted to safeguard their interest, safeguard their needs. And if I wasn't the right person for that, then I had to have the integrity and authenticity to say, I'm just not the right person for your needs. I can't meet those needs. And someone would say, well, what could that possibly be? Well, what if you had a seller that wanted you to do an open house every single weekend, or wanted you to run a $5,000 ad every month? I'm not, so I give you a lot of examples where you'd want to walk away, because if that's their expectation and you're not delivering, you're in a fractured relationship right at the start. It's going to break.
And I guess I go into this conversations that you and I have in the Monday Morning Huddle that the agents we're talking to are just the way you talk. There's a high level of integrity. Antoinette went in and I don't know if you saw, she posted an objection. I'm making this decision with my siblings. I need to talk to them about you. We'll get that siblings. We can get it spouse sometimes. So there's a couple of things that can be done there, right? First is when we're setting up a listing appointment, we always want to say something to the effect of, I'm looking forward to meeting you. Is there anyone else important to this decision who should be there? Because giving a presentation to half of the deciding audience is a waste of your time, to be perfectly honest. So, but let's say that they didn't tell you, or it didn't become known till afterward. One of the first things I would ask is, you would repeat, you want to talk to them about me? That's fantastic. So are the four of you making a decision together, or is one of you the one in charge of and you're looking for feedback from the others? I want to understand the dynamic now of what's going on. What did I step into? And then the first thing I'd want to do is say, I've never met anything in writing. I've never met another person that could represent the conviction and the passion I have as well as I can. Why don't we set up a meeting? Why don't we set up a virtual? Why don't we, and basically reset the listing presentation with them there. That would be my first objective, handling that. Yeah. I don't know if you have other thoughts.
With technology, we've all gotten so comfortable with these meetings, these Zoom, Google Meets, whatever you want to call them. It's easy now. It's natural now to pull someone up on screen, and they can participate remotely if they need to be a part of the decision-making process. So,
and I want to be there to answer questions they might have, right? Let's get them set up. That's a great idea. And you make it their idea. Fantastic idea, Mrs. Klein. Let's do that right now. I wanted to comment, and if people have more, please chime in, on something you said about building inventory. And we have a small difference on this. It's the 10 listing mentality. That's how I reference it. You don't actually have to have 10 listings, but you have to have the mentality of someone who has 10 listings. You'll make much, much better decisions. Whether you actually have them or have the mentality, it's just up to you. But would I be dealing with this? Would I be pursuing this particular transaction if I had 10 listings right now? It keeps you honest with yourself, which is what what you're talking about. Very important.
Right. Yeah. If you're not there, that doesn't mean that you can't psychologically put yourself in a position of strength. I just think that people that come from a position of strength, it's not to get high ground on someone. It's all about you being able to make intelligent decisions for yourself.
Well, I look at this and I say, look, this person wants to sell their home. That's why we're even having this conversation. But they're not sure. And we all know this. Selling your home is a really scary thing. Is this the right time for me to do it? Is this the right price? Is this the right agent? Is this the right brokerage? Will we find a good buyer? Will I find my home that I want to be in afterward? There's all these huge questions that are stressful and hard. So I get it. I get that they're scared. I also know that if I am the agent going in, I am without question the right agent. There's nobody as good as I am. Right? We have to have that mentality. So if you're unsure, if you're objecting, my job is to help you get past that so that you can hire me. Because God forbid I don't do that and they end up with some, part-timer agent somewhere. In what we say, in a weak moment, they choose a weak agent. That's my fault because I didn't help them get past the trust issues and the objections so they could see their way clear to hiring me, which I know is in their best interest. Am I overstepping that?
No. It's, I was just thinking, actually, I was listening to you and I got to thinking of what visual best describes the way I would always try to approach a confrontation or conflict. And I think of one of my favorite movies is Dances with Wolves. This is going to sound really crazy, but I think of when Kevin Costner goes into the teepee to talk with the spiritual leader. And he sits down and he knows he wants to leave the tribe, right? He wants to go because he feels he's putting them in danger. And the chief, the spiritual leader, I think his name was Ten Bears, says to him, let's have a conversation. And he passes him a pipe. And I think of that setting, the tone he was setting to have a very hard conversation is the same thing I want to do, or have always tried to do, is to de-escalate. And if you can draw that visual, if you've seen that movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It stands out in the movie. And I think that if we can do that, that's about having solid emotional intelligence It's not reacting, being queued up to you might have you have the answers all the time when we're in these listing or when we're dealing with objections. People do best what they do most. Most people sell a house once every 7 years. They don't know that they don't know that they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the blocking and tackling of this business. They only know what they can see from the lens of Zillow. And so they don't understand the sausage making component of our business. You do. And that gives you a tremendous advantage if you're willing to just have a conversation and try to de-escalate by educating them on what it is you know, not telling them what you know. Can I share something with you that after I share it might get you to see this problem a little bit differently? Right? If you could just use words like that as you enter into your objection handling, you're going to get them to get into their own curiosity and open their mind up to maybe I'm not thinking about this right. I just wanted to close on that as far as my contribution to this conversation, because I think that is just to me, that was a learned experience, because when I went to Sweat Hogs my first years in real estate, Sean, they cue you up for the words, what to say, when to say it, how to say it. Mm-hmm. I was locked and loaded, and I met with some success. I did, because I was far better prepared to deal with conflict than I was before I took that program. But I hit a ceiling of achievement because everything I was doing was just queued up for that response. And I believe people started to sense that. But my reaction, I heard this one before. I got quicker. The more I kept hearing the same objections, I was quicker with my responses, which left people feeling like you're not listening to me or you don't care about me. You're just reacting to everything I say. And I felt prepared. So I can't stress it enough that when you handle objections, one last thought, and I know I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with me on this. It's important to lower your voice. It's important to slow your speech pattern down. It's important to lower the tone of your voice, right? Just to talk a little more softly. Not like an authoritarian, somebody who just knows everything, right? So just a couple other little nuggets there, but those are things you learn by doing, and that's all the insight I can provide. And I'm happy to share with anyone one-on-one that would like to hear more on my side of this, but that's what I have to offer here. So,
well, that's what you're really good at and bring up a lot, Steve. We want to be sitting on the same side of the table with the person we're talking to, not across from them, showing them where they're wrong,
yes,
but next to them, exploring. When they come up with the answer, it's always right. If you tell them the answer, it's minimum 50-50.
Exactly.
So here's a takeaway that I want to give all of you, because a lot of this, when we think of objection handling, it's usually like in a listing presentation, and we're getting price or commission or experience questions. But there's a place where you actually could practice this a lot more. How many times a day do we request an appointment? If I were to have you guys measure one thing, that's what I'd have you measuring every day. How many times a day am I requesting an appointment? Because that is the whole goal of our business, to get. Once I have the appointment, then we can do our scripts. And the first one through the door is 60-something% likely to get the transaction. How often? And that's where that's not a very scripted objection handling system. Once someone's given you any idea that they're going to sell their home, well, let's do this. Why don't I come by Tuesday around 3 or at 5 o'clock? You start the thing. No, first objection. And now you start to follow the structure part where there is no specific script I can give you. You repeat, you affirm, you ask a question about them. Because people talking about themselves creates more rapport. Then take them to the dream. Always put them back in the dream. Well, if you could sell it and move closer to your grandchildren, wouldn't that be great? Yeah. Well, good. Then let's do this. I'll come out to, no, I have to, you have to, I repeat, affirm. So tell me why that's important. Fantastic. So if we could overcome that and your grandchildren could see you before school starts, back to the dream. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Awesome. Tell you what, on Tuesday, I'll come by minimum 5 times you should close on an appointment. That means 5 times you have to ask a question or two, take them back to the dream and reclose for the appointment. That's a phenomenal place to practice this because there's no specific script for you. It's just working the system, helping them overcome their own fears. Anyway, that would be my...
Yeah, no, I appreciate that's spot on. And couldn't agree with you more. If we were to ask, I'm just going to give another quick reality check here, or give it my point of view on what we do. I think most agents believe their job is to sell houses. And I do think that we provide a lot of expertise in that process, but I also believe that houses sell houses, and people get in the way of a successful transaction. And so if I were to ask agents, what do you get paid to do? One answer would be to sell houses, another would be to find people who need to sell. But I think at its core, the job of a great real estate agent is to solve problems. And in the middle of all of that is your ability to handle objections, and you need to practice it better. You need to practice it more. You need to take your concern and concentration on this discipline more serious. It's right behind finding people who want to sell, right? Like the most important thing you've got to do today, if you're on this call, is find someone who's thinking about buying or selling a home. Is that right?
And they're out there.
Right. Okay. The second most important thing that you've got to practice is your ability to solve problems. And that, at the core of that, is handling people's concerns or objections in a way that is structured, in a way that is about safeguarding the needs of your client, and more importantly, safeguarding the needs of you and your family. Your ability to be an expert in this realm right here is going to bottom line. It's going to show up in your bottom line, I should say. It's going to pay the bills. The better you are at this, the more money you're going to make as a real estate professional. And that's it.
All right, we're over on time. Steve and I always stay behind a few minutes in case anybody has questions. Yeah. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have a specific objection or something specific comes up, reach out to your sales manager, reach out to any of us. Our whole purpose of being here is to help you guys help other people.
Sure.
Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you. Any questions? Thanks, Joe.
Hey, guys. This is Randall from Carlsbad. This is the first time I've been on your guys' Monday morning meeting. And I just want to tell you, thank you so much for everything you guys said and conveyed to us. I wish I would have heard this a couple months ago. I got a listing from one of my former bosses, and I ended up lowering my commission for him because we had a relationship, and it ended up being the worst transaction I ever had. And we ended up losing the listing midway through escrow because, as unreasonable as he was with me in the beginning, he was just as unreasonable with the buyer in the middle of the transaction. And if I had gone in there with the confidence of that I have 10 listings, even though I don't, I probably wouldn't have taken that listing. So I appreciate what you guys said.
It's absolutely. It's a funny thing, and I shared this with you guys, not just in real estate, but in life. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. They'll tell you who they are. That's who they're going to be, just like you. That's an unfortunate experience, Randall. But thank you for sharing, because that's exactly how we can apply this stuff. Yeah,
it is a great experience because, Randall, you're not unique. I think we've all had that situation, and what I've learned is it's a tea leaf, right? Over time, you will come to understand that it gives you insight into what the relationship is going to be about. These are people that want to do this to you, someone who you know, someone that you've worked with, that wants to undervalue you. Then it turns into a relationship where the person's trying to get blood from a rock. I mean, it really is a warning sign.
Yeah, appreciate that very much. Anybody else? Question, comment?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us. We're all set. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cancel the recording, stop the recording. This will be posted in our workplace. Is that where it gets posted, Steve?
It does, yes.
So if anybody wants to hear it, or if you know somebody, tell them to come join us on Mondays. By all means, send us any thoughts you have on something you'd like us to explore. We're open to that. And everybody have a phenomenal week.
Thank you, everyone.
Even you, Steve.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you, Polly.
Have a good day. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.